Hi everyone, I'm Ellie from Ellie's Exotics, and today we are going to be setting up a Mexican black kingsnake enclosure. And not just any enclosure, it's going to be fully bioactive, and the vivarium is from PhyloZoo. So thank you PhyloZoo for sending this viv out to me, and let's get right into the video. So first of all, I chose what wood I wanted, and Freddie was very excited to see all of the sticks around. Once we had chosen what pieces we wanted fitted to the background, we started to prepare the enclosure. So we put some little plastic tarpaulin down, popped the enclosure on top, and started arranging where we wanted the wood to fit on the background. We're aiming to make texture and depth, but without making any holes that little Toast could fit through and injure himself, because he is very accident prone. And now it's time for the fun but also stressful part, which is foaming. It always starts off a little bit rocky whilst I get used to the can, and then I made these swirl patterns so that it looks quite natural when it expands. You don't want to do any straight lines or anything like that because it will look too uniform. We're not going to be carving and siliconing this background because I am lazy. I don't want to do all that, and I was making two backgrounds at the same time. So we're just popping the wood straight onto the background, deciding where we want it to go, and then we're taking desert sand and cocoa fiber and putting it directly on top of that wet expanding foam. This does work, not as well as carving and siliconing, but if you are on a time crunch or you just simply can't be asked to carve in silicone like me, then it turns out pretty good. After the substrate goes on, you just want to pat it down and let it dry for 24 hours. When we tipped it up, we realized there were a couple bald spots, so what we did was we mixed up some of the desert sand and water, which creates like a clay paste, and then we just rubbed that onto the background. You can actually make an entire background out of just the clay stuff, but I wanted to use foam because it creates a lot more depth. Again, let that dry for 24 to 48 hours, and now it's time to clear out the space where we want the enclosure to go. So we're doing a bit of reptile Tetris, we're moving Marmite, my Kenyan sand boa, next to Big Mac, my Pac-Man frog. Then we also moved Toast's old enclosure out of the way. It's 45 by 45 by 30, and I do kind of have plans for it, but if you have any ideas, then let me know. What do you think I should put in his old enclosure? I'm thinking maybe a tarantula. After giving the surface a wipe down, we popped his new enclosure on top of Chai's Viv. This enclosure is 4 foot long, 2 foot deep, and 18 inches tall. Now, for an adult, I would suggest 2 foot of height, but Toast is tiny, which you will see at the end of the video. He's really small. So for now, 18 inches is fine. Then I sweeped up any excess substrate that had fallen off of the background just to make it look nice and clean, got rid of that and gave the enclosure a good wipe down with some Safe 4. Thank you Safe 4 for sending me some amazing products. This is definitely the one that I reach for the most. I am constantly using it to disinfect pretty much everything and to clean my glass too. Now it's time to set up the lighting. For the plants he has a jungle dawn, but he also has a 7% shade dweller and an 100-watt Reptile Systems eco halogen. That's a mouthful. And after popping the substrate barrier in, it was time to add in our substrates. I started out by adding a bit of drainage medium from ProRep. Thank you ProRep for sending me this. But this is more of like a precaution. This enclosure is so arid, I don't think I really need a drainage layer, but it's nice to have one just in case. I also started planning where I wanted my plants to go, but I'll talk about plants more in a bit. Let's go back to substrate for now. So for substrate, I am using topsoil, Leo Life by ProRep. I'm also using a little bit of play sand and then a little bit of desert sand for colour too. I want about 4 inches of substrate sloped towards the back for depth, as deep substrate is good for burrowing for my kingsnake, but also good for the plants, as bioactive setups can lose up to 2 inches of substrate depth in the first few months of being set up. So the more substrate, the better. Then we added in some hardscape. Hardscape is things like cork bark and branches, and this provides lots of clutter so that your snake feels nice and safe. Another thing that helps them feel nice and safe is plants. So let's talk about which plants I'm using. My main plant is this snake plant, but I've also gone for a variety of succulents too. I'm terrible with plant names, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm also going to try and resurrect this spider plant, and this sad little succulent too. My partner's #1 request for plants was Airplants, so I got some of those and also some Spanish moss to add a bit of texture to the background. Once we started adding the plants in, it really brought the enclosure to life. Those greens really break up like the desertness of this enclosure, as there's a lot of beiges, browns, and reds. I particularly really like Spanish moss. I have it in quite a lot of my enclosures, as it just adds so much character, and they are so easy to keep alive. You can put Spanish moss in almost any setup and it will do well. As long as you give it a nice spray down every day, it'll thrive. But even though this is an arid setup, I still put in some of ProRep sphagnum moss for a bit of boost of humidity if Toast is wanting it. I even added some to the base of my plants to keep them nice and hydrated. After that, I added in some leaf litter. This is important not just for looks, but also for the cleanup crew. The cleanup crew will nibble on this and use it to hide away. And when it breaks down, it provides nutrients for the plants. Then I gave the plants a really good water so that they're nice and hydrated whilst this setup is still establishing. We then popped on the glass panels. I love how they have little handles on. I wish the rest of my enclosures had these because they are super handy. And we added the finishing touches like his water bowl and also adding in his cleanup crew. I am going for dairy cow isopods and giant orange isopods. Toast dairy cow isopods have been thriving in his previous setup, so that's why I went for them this time round. And plus, they are just gorgeous. They're so cute. Look at their little patterns. I love them. And it's time for the man himself to enter the enclosure. Look at how big he's gotten. He's still tiny, don't get me wrong, but he has doubled in size since we got him in January, and I think he is so ready for this upgrade. People always say you can't put baby snakes in their adult enclosure, but this is proof that you can. He utilizes all the space, and as long as you set it up appropriately for their size, they will be absolutely fine. Just make sure you block off any places that they could possibly escape. But that is the enclosure, all finished. Toast is loving it. Let's sit back, relax, and take a look. Thanks again to PhiloZoo, ProRep, and Safe4 for sending me some products for this video, and now let's go back to camera ready Ellie. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you did enjoy this video. Let me know down below what your king snake is called if you do have one, or what you're planning to name them if you get one in the future. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.